Hey everyone and welcome. Today we're doing something really cool. We're cracking open nature's toolbox. For hundreds of millions of years, evolution has been the ultimate problem solver, coming up with the most incredible and ingenious designs for survival. We're going to take a tour of its greatest hits. So, let me ask you a question right off the bat. How does an insect breathe with no lungs at all? Or how do some deep-sea creatures get by with blue blood instead of red? Now, this isn't science fiction, I promise. These are real, amazing solutions that life has come up with, and we're about to see just how they work.
You know, when you think about it, what could a tiny beetle and a massive blue whale possibly have in common? They seem like they're from different planets. But believe it or not, on the most fundamental level, every single animal is playing the same game by the same rules. They all have to solve the same set of universal challenges just to stay alive.
Think of it like a biological to-do list that every creature has to check off. You've got to get oxygen to power your cells, you need a way to move that oxygen and nutrients around, you have to process food for energy, and you've got to get rid of all the toxic junk that builds up. These are the absolute, non-negotiable rules of the game.
All right, so let's start with the big one. The first item on that list, breathing. Getting oxygen. This is maybe the most urgent problem to solve, and the answer that an animal comes up with is totally shaped by its environment. Are you pulling oxygen out of the air we breathe or from under the water?
So let's look at the most basic solution out there, diffusion. For really small, thin animals like a flatworm, you don't need any fancy organs. Oxygen from the water just soaks right through their skin, straight to every cell. It's incredibly simple and efficient, but there's a catch. It only works if you're tiny and, well, flat.
Okay, so that works if you're small, but what if you live underwater and you're bigger? Water has way less oxygen than air, so you need a super efficient system to grab it. And evolution's answer? Gills. These things are masterpieces, incredibly complex, feathery tissues that create a huge surface area to pull out every last bit of oxygen from the water flowing past.
And that brings us to us, the land dwellers. Our main tool for the job is, of course, the lung. You can almost think of lungs as gills that have been folded up and tucked inside the body. This keeps them moist and protects them from the dry air, giving oxygen a big, wet surface to dissolve into before it hits our bloodstream.
And when I say a big surface, I'm not kidding. This is going to blow your mind. If you could somehow take all the tiny little air sacs inside a human's lungs, they're called alveoli, and lay them out flat, you'd have a surface area of about 75 square meters. That is the size of a tennis court packed inside your chest, all designed to maximize how much oxygen we can absorb with every single breath.
But here's the thing about evolution. Just when you think you've figured out the pattern, it throws you a total curveball. And that curveball is insects. Their whole strategy is completely different. Insects don't even use their blood to move oxygen around. Instead, they have this amazing network of tiny tubes, called a tracheal system, that acts like a direct pipeline, delivering air from the outside straight to their cells. No middleman needed.
Okay, so you've managed to get the oxygen into the body. Great. But now what? You've got to ship it, along with all the other nutrients, to trillions of cells. And that brings us to the next big blueprint, life's internal highway system, the circulatory system. And for this delivery problem, evolution basically came up with two main designs. On one hand, you have the open circulatory system, which you'll find in insects and snails. Think of it like a splash park. A fluid called hemolymph just gets pumped into a big open cavity and sloshes around, bathing all the organs. It's simple, but kind of slow. Then you have what we have, a closed circulatory system. This is more like a city's water supply, high-pressure pipes or vessels that deliver blood exactly where it needs to go, fast and efficiently. Of course, every highway needs an engine, and the heart got some pretty serious upgrades over the millennia. Fish have a simple two-chambered heart, like a basic pump. Amphibians took it up a notch with a three-chambered heart, which was better, but still allowed some oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor blood to mix. The real game changer was the four-chambered heart in mammals and birds. It's a true dual-pump system that keeps the two circuits completely separate, which is what allows for our high-energy, warm-blooded lifestyle.
You know, we're all taught that blood is red, right? Well, this right here is going to completely shatter that idea. Our blood is red because we use hemoglobin, which has iron in it. But look at this. Spiders and squids use a copper-based pigment called hemocyanin, which makes their blood blue-green. And it gets weirder. Some marine worms have green or even violet blood from different pigments. It's just a fantastic example of evolution finding totally different chemical solutions to the exact same problem.
So all this breathing and pumping, it takes a ton of energy. And where does that energy come from? Fuel, food. Which brings us to our next system, the fuel processor, the digestive system. And let me tell you, an animal's gut is an absolute masterpiece of engineering, custom built for whatever it eats.
The earliest models were super simple. Think of a jellyfish. It has what's called a gastrovascular cavity. It's basically a sac with one hole that's both the mouth and, well, the exit. The huge evolutionary leap forward was the alimentary canal, a one-way street, a tube with a mouth at one end and an anus at the other. This simple change was revolutionary because it allowed for specialized sections, like a disassembly line for food, making digestion way more efficient.
But if you want to see specialization taken to a whole other level, you have to look at animals like cows and sheep. They live on a diet of super tough plant material, cellulose, that most animals just can't digest. So what was their solution? They evolved this incredibly complex stomach with multiple chambers that basically works like a built-in fermentation factory.
And this is that factory in action. It's a whole journey. First, food goes into the rumen, which is like a giant fermentation tank full of microbes. Then it moves to the reticulum, where it's packed into cud and, yep, regurgitated to be chewed again. From there, it goes to the omasum to have water squeezed out, and finally it hits the abomasum, which is like our true stomach, for a final acid bath. It's an absolutely incredible assembly line for getting every last drop of nutrition.
So, we've looked at breathing, circulation, digestion, and I think the biggest takeaway here is that none of these systems work alone. Far from it. Each one of these evolutionary blueprints is just one instrument in a much larger orchestra. It's truly a symphony of survival.
It all just fits together so perfectly. The respiratory system grabs the oxygen. The circulatory system acts as the delivery service. The digestive system provides the fuel to run the whole show. They aren't just working next to each other. They are deeply, elegantly woven together into a single, functioning machine, perfected over millions and millions of years.
So from a simple membrane soaking up oxygen all the way to a four-chambered heart and a four-chambered stomach, the story of life is a story of relentless, brilliant innovation. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. After 500 million years of tinkering and testing, what do you think the next great evolutionary blueprint for survival might look like? Thanks for joining me for this one.